First of all, thank you all for being here. You probably know most of the news today, but I felt like I need to hold this press conference. So, I guess it's about 2 years ago. I just gotten into office, and one of the things that was just striking to me were all the psychoactive, really bad stuff being sold. Some of it in packages that look like normal, routine foods or snacks. And if you'll remember, this was early 23. There were a lot of kids being reported as having sampled some of this. Some of them ended up in the hospital. I got in touch with the poison control folks over at UAMS. I'm just sort of going through this timeline in my mind. It's all been on hold, which is frustrating to someone like me who's very kinetic. And I remember we did with at least one of the local news stations. We gathered in that room on the 11th floor over at the old office and just spread out a bunch of these items. And some of them I might have seen in passing at convenience stores or whatever. But shocked to see things that look like everyday candy wrappers and tortilla chips and things like that, things that would be attractive to kids. And, you know, they were really, really toxic, very high levels of drugs in them. And you sort of raise the question, how can this stuff be legal? And having talked with my amazing staff and looked at this myself, we all concluded, number one, it's not. Number two, it shouldn't be. And number three, we better make sure it's not with some legislation. And so Act 629 of 2023 was the culmination of that. And you're talking about almost an unlimited number of dangerous drugs. You Delta 8 and Delta 9 and Delta pick a number. And also, who knows what's in this stuff half the time? It is just a Wild West, so to speak. People just making money, hand over fist. And I looked around and thought, this stuff, it's got to be illegal, but let's not take any chances. Let's anticipate the arguments, and let's pass something that makes it very clear. And the governor, I championed the law. The governor supported the law, and it was carried by Jimmy Gazaway, Representative Gazaway, and Senator Dees, who really, really fought hard on that. And I want to thank Chairman Eubanks for being here. He played a key role, even though he was being bugged by the other side. They didn't know how wrong they were, but they put a lot of pressure on him. But he stood strong and did what was right. And so what happened is the law passed. And the stuff that ought to be banned was banned, is banned. And what a lot of folks wanted to say on the other side, which we now know is wrong, I mean, we knew that before, but now a court has said they agree with us. They basically wanted to say, well, look, the federal government has already stepped into this area and sort of done what they want to do there. This is all allowed by the federal law, and you really don't have a shot or a chance or a voice here because you're preempted, and this has already been handled by the feds. The feds have spoken on this. And we knew that not to be the case. And so we ended up in court. We ended up in federal court. They basically said, we're going to sue you, and we're going to ask the federal judge to just freeze your law, because the feds they've already spoken on this issue. And we said, okay, we'll see you in court. We're going to win. It may take a while. You don't always get who's right at step one, but we knew we would be right. We would be determined right at some point, because we'd looked at the law, but also because it was common sense. So we ended up in federal court, and the federal judge granted an injunction that says, we're freezing this law. You can't do anything. And so what happened was several things started to happen after that. So our law was frozen, and that put me in a difficult position, because I'm seeing the proliferation of this trash. And I can't do anything about it, because then I risk acting in contempt of this federal judge's order. So I would have people come and say, hey, have you seen this stuff? Or they'd call me, have you seen this stuff? Why can't you do something? I'd have to go, look, it's complicated. It's really not that complicated. We have a law. It is illegal, but the judge has frozen it, so my hands are tied right now. So that was sort of what was happening while this law was frozen. And during that time, we said, you know what, we're not going to take any chances with the feds. We know the feds have not stepped into this area and allow what these people on the other side of us, what they say, that this stuff is not allowed under federal law. But let's make sure absolutely positively, make it crystal clear for those who don't get it now. Let's get the feds to expressly say, that's not what we meant. We did not mean to allow this stuff. And that's a process that's ongoing right now. And that bill passed the House, and it's now sitting in the Senate. And I've been in contact, my staff has, numerous times with the federal delegation on this issue. I reached out to Senator Bozeman today. He's been a leader on this issue. And I have confidence that they're going to clarify the language. Now, the good news is we're not in dire need of it today, because the 8th Circuit has said this is what the law is, what the federal law is. The state of Arkansas can do what it's doing on this. It is not preempted by federal law. The feds have not occupied this ground, so to speak. We can make it illegal, and have. And that's why we're here today. So we have this 8th Circuit reversal of the federal judge here. The freeze is gone. There'll be some few weeks of sort of tidying this case up. There's an opportunity for the losing side to seek certain remedies, and the losing side will have, so they could take some time, a few weeks here or there. But the bottom line is the 8th Circuit found that the preliminary injunction was wrong, shouldn't have been done. And all during that time, the preliminary injunction was there. Kids were getting hurt. We were unable to fix stuff. Just know there was a price. The 8th Circuit dismissed the part of the suit against the governor and me. Said that's ridiculous. That's gone. The 8th Circuit found the Farm Bill, federal Farm Bill, does not preempt Arkansas law. And our law is not vague. It's crystal clear. Big part of that's because we had rock stars here in this office working on that law. Alex and many others. She could tell me all the different people who worked on that, but a lot of people in this office worked on that, worked really hard to make sure it wasn't vague. So when the 8th Circuit issues this mandate, and maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever it is, at a minimum 3 weeks, could be longer, then Arkansas's ban will be back in full force and effect. Really proud of Jordan. Is Jordan here? Jordan Broyles, Hallenbeck, who argued at the trial court level in the hearing. And then Asher. Asher is not in here? Yep. Asher was really in the SG shop, really important at the 8th Circuit, and just did great work, a lot of support around the building. Here's one of the main reasons I wanted to hold this press conference is I wanted to, tell people, look, I've been watching this. I've been as frustrated as you have, but I've been unable to do anything without risking violating the preliminary injunction. So my hands were tied. Wasn't my, the law that I follow includes following preliminary injunctions. And so that's a big part of why I wanted to get together today. The other reason I wanted to get together today is I wanted to just tell people, if you're selling this, you may have a few weeks to pack your stuff up. But if you're selling it, you're violating the law. And I can walk in just about any convenience store in this city, and a lot of smoke shops, which I do not do, but I could, and may have a reason to after this goes into effect. And you can find stuff that is completely illegal. Completely illegal. And so I would just say, if you're selling this stuff, you need to know that you're doing it in violation of the law. And, you got a few weeks to get the stuff out of the state because it's going to go away one way or the other. And so this is one of the most important, if not the most important victories that this office has had since I've been here. Primarily because this is a really serious problem that's only growing. We had the legislature and the governor and all the policymakers that voted for it had a common sense way of dealing with what is a clear and present danger. And when you're using this stuff, you have no idea what's in it. None. You don't even know where it's from. I think some of it's from China. There's some China ties on some of this stuff. They always turn up in the worst possible places. China. So this is so satisfying. There's a problem. This is the way the system's supposed to work. Public policy. There's a problem. Serious people get together and come up with a serious solution. It happened. The legislature, the governor, my office, we all worked together. The health department, lots of people who care, all came together, came up with a serious solution to fix the problem. That's exactly the way it's supposed to work. We had a little diversion, we had a little detour for a year where it was frozen. But this is so satisfying because now that law is back. And we're going to be able to deal with this issue. And so I just wanted to just sort of provide the context of where this falls and why it's so important. And there's so many people to thank on this. I mentioned Senator Dees, Representative Gazaway. We've had 2 speakers in those 2 times. Representative Shepard, Speaker Shepard, Speaker Evans. There's just a lot of people who have helped on this. I'm sure I've missed. But this has been a true team effort, but it's been on hold. And now it's not. And we're just really excited about that. And anyway, I'll take any questions, but I won't belabor the point. But so I'm not breaking a lot of news. You already knew this. But I think the context is really important as to why our hands have been tied. Our hands have literally been tied. And they're not anymore. And this is a big, big deal. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Bob Brooks, whose name this building is named after, was very, very engaged in this issue. And, in fact, there was an email that was shown to me today from Bob to Jordan. I was scared at first because I read it. I went, oh, my gosh, Bob has sent Jordan an email. It was an email from probably 2 years ago. And he basically said, he had read her brief, I believe. And he basically said, this is going to be a big winner. You're going to have, I won't get into all the details, but you're going to have another victory because of this when all is said and done. And look at that. It's not the first time Bob was right. He knew when he read it that we were right. And I wish he was here to savor this with us. Okay, what y'all got? Anything?
So why is it not preempted?
Well, this is not the federal government, the federal legislation, the Farm Bill didn't intend to occupy this space. They were dealing with a specific agricultural issue, and they were not intending to occupy all of the ground of psychoactive drugs. Didn't intend to occupy the ground that states might want to occupy to regulate these, right? So what happened is that the Farm Bill engages on the issue of hemp as an agricultural product. And what happened is a lot of these people wrongly, who opposed us, wrongly, they lost on this. They basically said, well, because they mentioned hemp, all these hemp derivatives that'll kill you, half of them, or make you high or whatever, they meant to really just say states can't deal with that. Come on. That doesn't even make any sense. And so it's not even a close argument. And the reason the preliminary injunction had to be stricken is because we were most likely to win on the merits of this case. And so I can't even make their argument for them because it's so ridiculous. But this is what states do. This is what states do. We routinely do this. And then the backup argument was that we were vague. There was nothing vague about it. It's not so vague that we don't know what they're doing is illegal. It's not that vague. So anyway, I don't think it's a close call. No, I don't think. I mean, there's lotions you can get that have hemp in them, and this has to do with psychoactive products, and there's all sorts of scientific limits on this or that, what's in them, what's not in them. But all the stuff that you don't want being sold to minors that are basically have been unregulated for the last year, this stuff catches it. Yeah. Well, because the laws, I mean, if we want to, if you're going to get technical about it, because the law was frozen, some would say, okay, well, that law didn't apply. Now, we made the case that some of the regulations that existed before the law already banned it. And we had some conversations about, well, why don't we use the law, the regs that ban this stuff prior to the legislation? What's the problem with that? Well, we were afraid, because I don't want to be held in contempt, we were afraid that maybe the judge sees what we're doing and says, my injunction's so broad, you're not supposed to do that either. We didn't want to. Well, no, we're not using that. We're using this. We didn't want to get into that what some, it wasn't gray to us, but some might say it was gray, because the consequences of a slip-up is somebody in this office is held in contempt, and then you're doing a press event, not because we're catching people doing things illegally, but because one of us is gone awry, the judge. So we wanted to respect the judge's decision, the judge's injunction, and that's what we did. So in order to fully comply with the judge, where there's no even argument, because we've seen some of the nonsense arguments that the lawyers on the other side were willing to make. One of them in particular will say just about anything, and he has. We knew that would be an unforced error on our part, because he would say, well, they're violating. No one was going to give us the benefit of the doubt, so the best thing to do to respect the judge's preliminary injunction was to assume that some of the people on the other side were not going to act in good faith and just avoid it. And that's what we did. It was very frustrating. I would have people come to my office and saying, have you seen all this? Yes, I have. Why aren't you doing something about it? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let me explain that to you. And then about 6 months later, they'd come back and go, now, why aren't you doing something? And I'd say, nothing's changed. It still exists. And so it was a difficult deal for us, but we're about following the law. And the law of this state existed until it was frozen. So at that point, following the law was not following the Arkansas statute. Following the law at that point was following the federal judge's order, which we did. We played by the rules. We waited it out. It was frustrating, but in the end, common sense and the law prevailed at the 8th Circuit. So I know I'm talking, but I'm talking a lot. But we've had a lot to think about over this time. It's been a really difficult deal. You've seen the trash around here, and you really can't let your kid go into most convenience stores without seeing stuff that shouldn't be there. We're just so excited today. So you're really here for this celebration. Anything else?
Yeah, you mentioned something you want from Congress. So when did you talk to Senate folks?
Yeah. So we have been in touch. I've called him, texted him, and emailed him today. Okay. I found out I had the wrong. He got his cell phone changed, but I got his new cell phone. Anyway, and I'm not giving it out. But so he's been busy in a meeting. So we're going to try to connect after this. But we've been communicating with their offices for 2 years on this. It's real simple. See, we didn't have this ruling. So what we had was an Arkansas law that did what it was supposed to do, and a lawsuit that says it should be frozen because it's preempted by federal law. So we said, okay, well, we're going to win that suit, but let's have belt and suspenders, right? Let's go to Congress and take their argument away from them. Their argument is the Farm Bill preempts us. No, it doesn't, but just to make sure, let's let Congress tell you that their law doesn't. So that's what we did. We went and got language together, and it passed the House, and I predict it's going to pass the Senate. I don't want to, we're not going to take anything for granted, but what does that mean? It means saying in the Farm Bill what these people lost on in Arkansas is they were wrong. That's not what we meant. The 8th Circuit was right. Basically, it's belt and suspenders, right? It's 8th Circuit says they're wrong, and Congress says they're wrong.
So is that language in the Big Beautiful Bill, or is it different legislation?
Is it in the Big Beautiful? Yeah, okay. It's ag language, but I'm being told it is in the BBB. So, but it already passed the House, so that's a good sign. Yes, sir.
Sort of a silly question, but as pervasive as this is enforcement going to maybe be a little bit of a drawn-out process? And kind
I mean, it's not going to be. First of all, you implore those who generally try to follow the law to follow the law, because it couldn't be any clearer now. You know, most of these places that are, and I haven't talked to other, but this is an idea, and it's probably a good idea. Look, these businesses have to be licensed by the state to sell fuel and lots of other stuff. So there are state levers that we can, we can pull, but we're hoping that they just will take them down, and if not, there's a law enforcement component. Obviously, you can't just snap your fingers and have it all gone. I'm not naive, but I think a lot of them were selling it because they had been told that this suit was gonna be in their favor. I think a lot of them have been betting on a victory here. You know, a lot of these people selling it are selling it because someone sold it to them and went to them and said, hey, oh yeah, there's nothing they can do. That's why they're not doing it. It's frozen, and we're going to win this suit. You're good, and you can make a lot of money doing this. Okay, we'll put it up here. We'll sell it. That sort of thing. So, that's another reason to have this. Because you go back and report, and somebody, hopefully, is watching or reading. I think your circulation's 300,000 now. That's what I read. I wish, so hopefully some of those people will read it. And so we'll get the word out. Anything else? Okay. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. We have some, the press release has a quote from the governor, me, obviously, the governor, Representative Gazaway, Senator Dees. So lots of stuff in there. If you need anything else, I'm sure Chairman Eubanks would love to give you a quote back here. Anyway, hey, how many people the first time in the new building? Come on. Nice. Yeah. If you ever want a tour, I can tell you. And we're going to save money. Did I tell you all that? We're going to save money. Thank y'all.